In a galaxy far beyond the reach of human eyes, there existed a vast and powerful empire. This empire, known as the Galactic Empire, stretched across countless star systems, its influence touching every corner of the known universe. At its helm was Emperor Marcus Vane, a leader whose ambition knew no bounds. He ruled with an iron fist, but also with a mind always seeking expansion. His advisors whispered constantly in his ear, urging him to push the empire's borders further and claim new worlds for their resources and riches. One day, during one of their routine scouting missions into uncharted space, the empire's fleet discovered something intriguing: a small blue planet orbiting a modest yellow star. It was called Earth. The reports that came back described it as primitive yet abundant in materials the Empire desperately needed. To many within the council chambers, it seemed like an easy target, a world ripe for conquest without much resistance. But little did they know, this decision would soon be challenged in ways none of them could have anticipated. As preparations were underway to launch an invasion force, something unexpected happened. A ship appeared near the edge of the Empire's territory, unlike anything seen before. Its design was sleek, almost organic, glowing faintly with colors that shifted like liquid light. Communications crackled over the flagship's speakers, and a voice emerged, deep, resonant, and calm. "I am Kael'ron," it said, "General of the Zorathian Alliance. I request an audience with your ruler." Commander Laura Drake, head of the Empire's military forces, scowled at the transmission. She didn't trust outsiders, especially those who just showed up uninvited. "What does he want?" she muttered under her breath. But Ambassador Nathan Cole, a man more inclined toward diplomacy than warfare, urged caution. "We should hear him out," he suggested. "He might have valuable information." Emperor Vane, seated on his throne-like command chair aboard the Imperial flagship, listened carefully to both sides. After a moment of contemplation, he nodded. "Very well," he said, his voice carrying authority. "Bring him aboard." Kael'ron materialized in the grand chamber moments later, stepping through a shimmering portal of energy. He stood tall, taller than most humans, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed faintly. His presence commanded respect, even among the haughty members of the Empire's elite. He bowed slightly, a gesture of courtesy, before addressing the Emperor directly. "Your Majesty," Kael'ron began, his tone measured and deliberate. "I come not as an enemy, but as a messenger. I bring you a warning, one born of experience and wisdom gained through great loss." Vane raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "A warning? About what?" "About the world you intend to invade," Kael'ron replied. "Earth. The humans who dwell there may seem insignificant now, but do not let appearances deceive you. They are not what they appear to be." Drake scoffed audibly from her position beside the Emperor. "Humans? Primitive creatures barely capable of leaving their own planet? What threat could they possibly pose?" Kael'ron turned his glowing gaze toward her, and though his expression remained neutral, there was an undeniable weight behind his words. "You underestimate them," he said simply. "And that arrogance will be your downfall if you proceed." The room fell silent, save for the hum of machinery keeping the massive ship operational. Everyone present leaned forward slightly, curiosity piqued. Even Drake, though visibly irritated, couldn't help but listen. Kael'ron continued, pacing, slowly as he spoke. "Centuries ago, my people, the Zorathians, made the same mistake. We saw Earth as a prize to be claimed, a resource to exploit. Our technology was far superior, our armies unmatched. Surely we thought these fragile beings would crumble beneath our might. And so, we attacked." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. Then, with a sigh, he added, "It was the greatest blunder we ever made." Ambassador Cole leaned forward, his interest clear. "What happened?" Kael'ron fixed him with a steady look. "They adapted, faster than anyone thought possible. Where we expected fear, we found defiance. Where we assumed weakness, we encountered resilience. Humans possess a unique ability to innovate under pressure, to turn their surroundings into weapons and to unite when faced with annihilation. In time, they drove us back, not just defeated us, but shattered our forces entirely. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Some dismissed the story as exaggeration. Others felt a flicker of unease. Vane, however, remained impassive, studying the alien general with sharp eyes. "And you think this tale applies to us?" Vane asked finally. "It does," Kailaron replied without hesitation. "Do not make the same error we did. If you march against humanity, you march toward ruin." For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of Kailaron's words hung heavy in the air. Finally, Drake broke the silence, her voice sharp and dismissive. "This is nonsense. Times have changed. Their resilience won't matter against our superior firepower. We'll crush them before they even realize what hit them." Cole shot her a disapproving glance. "Perhaps we should consider his warning. If there's even a chance he's right, we can't afford to ignore it." Vane held up a hand, silencing both of them. He rose from his seat, towering over everyone else in the room. "Enough," he said firmly. "This discussion isn't over. For now, we halt all plans for invasion until we gather more information. Commander Drake, prepare a reconnaissance team. I want first-hand observations of this primitive species. And Ambassador Cole, continue speaking with our guest. Learn everything you can." With that, the meeting adjourned. As Kailaron departed, escorted by guards, Cole approached Vane privately. "Your Majesty," he began cautiously, "do you truly believe him?" Vane stared out the viewport, watching the stars streak past as the flagship moved through space. "Belief doesn't matter," he said after a pause. "What matters is preparation. If there's even a sliver of truth to his warning, we must tread carefully. The Empire cannot afford another costly mistake." Meanwhile, aboard his own vessel, Kailaron watched the Imperial fleet with a mixture of hope and dread. He had done all he could to warn them. Whether they heeded his advice or ignored it entirely remained to be seen. One thing was certain, though: the fate of two civilizations now rested precariously in the balance. As the days passed, preparations for the reconnaissance mission intensified. Lieutenant Ryan Holt, a seasoned officer chosen to lead the operation, reviewed intelligence reports with growing fascination. Earth, he realized, wasn't just another target. It was a mystery waiting to be unraveled. And somewhere deep inside, he wondered whether the Empire was ready for what it might find. Little did anyone know, the seeds of change had already been planted. Lieutenant Ryan Holt stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard the reconnaissance vessel, staring out at the swirling blue orb that was Earth. It hung in the vastness of space like a jewel, its surface streaked with clouds and shimmering oceans. He had seen countless planets during his service in the Galactic Empire, but there was something different about this one, something alive, almost magnetic. The mission briefing echoed in his mind. Observe, gather data, avoid detection. Simple. Orders. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this assignment would be anything but ordinary. As the ship descended into Earth's atmosphere under a cloaking field, Ryan felt a mix of excitement and unease. His team consisted of 4 others: Dr. Samantha Wells, the mission's chief scientist; Corporal Ethan Blake, a quiet but skilled technician; Ensign Maria Lopez, an expert in cultural studies; and Sergeant Daniel Quinn, a seasoned soldier who rarely spoke unless necessary. Together they formed a small but capable unit, tasked with uncovering the truth about humanity. Their first stop was a bustling city, a sprawling maze of towering buildings, crowded streets, and endless activity. From their hidden position high above the ground, the team observed through advanced sensors and cameras. At first glance, it seemed chaotic, a cacophony of noise and movement. Cars zipped along roads, people hurried to and fro, and neon signs flashed messages in languages Ryan didn't recognize. But as they watched longer, patterns began to emerge. Despite the apparent disorder, there was a rhythm to it all, a sense of purpose driving each individual. Dr. Wells adjusted her glasses, leaning closer to the monitor displaying live footage. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Look at how they interact. Even in such density, they manage to cooperate without conflict." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "It's like They've built systems to handle everything. Rules, signals, even unspoken agreements. They're not just surviving. They're thriving. Ryan frowned slightly. Thriving? This looks more like chaos waiting to happen. But Maria shook her head. Not really. Think about it. A single wrong move could cause accidents everywhere. Cars crashing, people colliding. But it doesn't. Why? Because they trust each other to follow the rules. That takes discipline. Organization. Ethan, who had been quietly monitoring energy readings, chimed in. And look at their tech. Primitive compared to ours, sure, but still impressive. For a species so young, solar panels, wind turbines, even early attempts at fusion reactors. They're resourceful. Samantha smiled faintly. Exactly. Resourcefulness is key. If Kael'ron's warnings are true, this might be why humans are dangerous. They don't rely solely on brute force. They adapt. The team spent hours observing, from afar, gathering data and piecing together fragments of human life. But it wasn't until later that evening, when they decided to venture closer, that things took an unexpected turn. Under cover of darkness, they materialized near a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The air smelled strange, earthy, tinged with hints of smoke and greenery. Streetlights cast soft glows over rows of houses, some with lights still on inside. Laughter drifted from open windows, accompanied by the faint hum of music. It was peaceful, almost serene. This place feels normal, Maria whispered, her voice tinged with awe. Like any other community back home. Ryan nodded slowly. Normal, maybe. But we need to stay focused. Let's split up and gather intel. Stick to the shadows. They moved cautiously, sticking to alleys and avoiding direct contact. Ryan and Maria headed toward a small park where a group of children played under the watchful eyes of adults. The sight struck Ryan deeply. These weren't warriors or strategists. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives. Yet there was a strength in their simplicity, a resilience in their laughter and smiles. Nearby, Samantha and Ethan stumbled upon a local community center. Inside, a young woman stood at the front of a room filled with attentive listeners. Her name, they learned from a nearby sign, was Emily Carter. She spoke passionately about overcoming challenges, using words like unity and innovation. Though her audience was small, her message carried weight. We've faced hardships before, Emily said, her voice steady and confident. Wars, disasters, divisions, but every time we've found a way to come together, to build something better. That's who we are. We don't give up. Samantha recorded the speech, her hands trembling slightly. She's talking about survival, she said softly. But it's more than that. It's hope, determination. These aren't qualities you can measure with scans or sensors. Meanwhile, Ryan and Maria continued their exploration, eventually encountering a traffic accident. A car had skidded off the road, narrowly missing a child crossing the street. Panic rippled through the crowd that gathered, but within moments, order was restored. Bystanders worked together to help the driver, comfort the shaken child, and redirect traffic. No one argued or hesitated. They simply acted. Ryan found himself stepping forward instinctively, unable to stand idly by. Using a device to mask his appearance, he intervened, pulling the child safely away from danger. For a brief moment, his actions drew attention, but the situation resolved quickly enough that no one questioned his presence. Back aboard the ship, the team reconvened, sharing their findings. Maria recounted the community spirit she'd witnessed, while Ethan highlighted technological advancements that hinted at untapped potential. Samantha played back Emily's speech, her expression thoughtful. They're survivors, she concluded. Not because they're stronger or faster, but because they refuse to quit. They adapt, innovate, and work together. That's what makes them formidable. Ryan nodded slowly, replaying the events of the night in his mind. I saved a kid tonight, he admitted. It wasn't part of the plan, but I couldn't just watch. And you know what? They handled it, calmly, efficiently, like they've done it before. Daniel, who had remained silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke. So what does this mean for us? Are we supposed to believe Kael'ron now? Ryan hesitated, unsure how to answer. Maybe, or maybe not. What I do know is that these people, they're not just prey, they're fighters, survivors, and if we underestimate them, we'll regret it. The conversation lingered in the air, unresolved, but heavy with implications. As the ship ascended back into orbit, Ryan gazed once more at Earth, its glow dimmed only slightly by the shadow of doubt creeping into his heart. Whatever the Empire decided next, one thing was certain. Humanity was far more complex, and perhaps far more dangerous, than anyone had anticipated. Back aboard the flagship, Lieutenant Ryan Holt and his team presented their findings to Emperor Marcus Vane and his council. The room was tense, filled with the weight of expectations. Commander Laura Drake sat stiffly, her arms crossed, visibly skeptical of anything that might challenge her belief in the Empire's superiority. Ambassador Nathan Cole, on the other hand, leaned forward, eager to hear what the reconnaissance mission had uncovered. Ryan stood at the center of the chamber, flanked by Dr. Samantha Wells and Ensign Maria Lopez. Behind them, holographic projections displayed images and data collected during their time on Earth. Ryan began cautiously, choosing his words carefully. "Your Majesty," he started, addressing Vane directly, "what we observed on Earth. It was unlike anything we expected. These humans, they're not just primitive creatures waiting to be conquered. They're resourceful, adaptable, and deeply connected to one another." Drake rolled her eyes but said nothing, letting him continue. Ryan gestured toward the first projection, a bustling cityscape teeming with life. Their cities are complex systems designed to function efficiently despite overcrowding. They've built networks for transportation, communication, and even energy distribution. Their technology may be basic compared to ours, but they use it creatively. Samantha stepped forward, taking over. "We also noticed how they rely on cooperation. On the surface, their society seems chaotic, but beneath that chaos is order. Rules, signals, shared understanding, it all works together to keep things running smoothly." Maria added, pointing to footage of the traffic accident Ryan had intervened in. "Even in emergencies, they act quickly and without hesitation. They don't panic, they adapt. It's like they're hardwired to solve problems as a group." Vane listened intently, his expression unreadable. When the team finished speaking, he turned to Kael'ron, who had been invited to attend the briefing. "General," he said, his voice calm but probing, "does this align with what you told us about humanity?" Kael'ron nodded solemnly. "It does, Your Majesty. What your officers witnessed is only a glimpse of what humans are capable of. Their ability to unite under pressure, to innovate when faced with challenges, that is their true strength. And it has brought down civilizations far greater than yours." Drake scoffed loudly, unable to contain her frustration any longer. "This is absurd. So they can build roads and follow traffic rules. Big deal. That doesn't make them a threat to us. We have weapons they can't even imagine, ships that can obliterate entire continents. How could they possibly stand against us?" Kael'ron's glowing eyes fixed on her, his tone unwavering. "Weapons and ships mean little if your enemy refuses to fight the way you expect. Humans do not play by the rules of conventional warfare. They think differently. They find weaknesses where none seem to exist, and they never surrender, not until every last option has been exhausted." To emphasize his point, Kael'ron activated a device strapped to his wrist. A hologram appeared, in the air, showing grainy footage of battles fought centuries ago. The scenes were chaotic. Explosions lit up alien landscapes, ships clashed in space, and ground troops engaged in brutal combat. But what caught everyone's attention was the outcome. Time and again, human forces managed to outmaneuver their opponents using clever tactics and makeshift tools to turn the tide. Ambassador Cole watched the footage with growing unease. "These recordings, they're real?" he asked. "They are," Kael'ron confirmed. "My people underestimated humans once before, and it cost us dearly. Entire fleets were destroyed, cities burned, millions perished, all because we failed. to understand them. Silence fell over the room as the gravity of Kaleron's words sank in. Even Drake seemed momentarily shaken, though she quickly masked it with defiance. Fine, she snapped. Let's say you're right. Let's say these humans are smarter than they look. It still doesn't change the fact that we're stronger. We have better weapons, faster ships, and superior numbers. No matter how clever they are, they can't win against overwhelming force. Nathan frowned, shaking his head. That's not necessarily true. History shows that smaller, weaker forces often prevail against larger ones if they're smart enough. Look at Earth itself. Over the centuries, weaker armies have defeated stronger ones through strategy and determination. Why should this be any different? Vane raised a hand, silencing the argument before it could escalate further. He turned to Ryan. Lieutenant, you spent time among them. Do you believe they pose a genuine threat? Ryan hesitated, weighing his response. He thought back to the child he'd saved, the laughter of the children in the park, the resilience he'd seen in ordinary people going about their lives. Finally, he spoke. I believe they're dangerous, Your Majesty, but not in the way we usually think. They're not dangerous because of their weapons or their armies. They're dangerous because of their spirit. Because no matter how bad things get, they refuse to give up. If we attack them, they won't roll over and die. They'll fight back with everything they've got. The Emperor leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. After a long pause, he addressed the room. Enough debate for now. This is too important to decide hastily. General Kaleron, I want you to provide us with more detailed accounts of your past encounters with humanity. Lieutenant Holt, compile a full report on your observations. Commander Drake, prepare contingency plans, in case we proceed with military action. And Ambassador Cole? He paused, meeting Cole's gaze. Explore diplomatic options. If there's a chance to avoid war, we must consider it. With that, the meeting adjourned. As the others filed out, Nathan approached Ryan privately. You did well in there, he said quietly. Not many would dare speak so candidly to the Emperor. Ryan shrugged, looking uneasy. I just told the truth. Whether anyone listens is another story. Later that evening, Kaleron met with Nathan in a secluded part of the ship. The ambassador had requested the meeting, hoping to learn more about humanity from someone who had first-hand experience. Over steaming cups of synthetic tea, Kaleron shared stories from his people's ill-fated invasion of Earth. It began as most invasions do, Kaleron explained. We arrived with overwhelming force, confident in our superiority. At first, it seemed easy. Their defenses crumbled, their armies fled. But then, something changed. Nathan leaned forward, captivated. What happened? They adapted, Kaleron replied simply. At first they used guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and retreating before we could respond. Then they started reverse engineering our technology, turning our own weapons against us. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late. They had learned how to counter everything we threw at them. He paused, his glowing eyes dimming slightly as memories surfaced. The final battle took place in one of their largest cities. We thought victory was within reach, but instead of fleeing, the humans stayed. They fought street by street, building by building. Every step forward cost us dearly. In the end, we withdrew. Not because we were defeated outright, but because continuing would have meant total annihilation. Nathan sat back, stunned. And you truly believe history will repeat itself if we invade now? I do, Kaleron said gravely. Humans may lack the firepower to match your fleet, but they have something far more powerful, the will to survive, and that will drives them to unimaginable lengths. As the night wore on, Nathan found himself wrestling with doubt. Everything Kaleron had said aligned with what Ryan's team had observed, yet convincing the rest of the council, and especially Commander Drake, wouldn't be easy. The Empire's pride ran deep, and the idea of backing down from a potential conquest went against its very nature. Meanwhile, aboard the reconnaissance vessel, Ryan and his team discussed their next steps. Samantha pored over the data they'd collected, searching for patterns or insights that might strengthen their case. Maria sketched diagrams of human social structures, highlighting areas of resilience and innovation. Ethan tinkered with equipment, ensuring everything was ready for another mission if needed. Ryan, however, couldn't shake the image of Emily Carter giving her speech. Her words echoed in his mind. "We don't give up." It struck him as more than just rhetoric. It was a philosophy, a way of life. And perhaps he realized it was the key to understanding humanity's true power. "We need to show them," Ryan said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Not just tell them. Words aren't enough. If we want the Council to see humans the way we do, we need proof." Samantha looked up, intrigued. "Proof of what?" "That they're worth protecting," Ryan replied firmly. "That they're not just another species to conquer, they're special." The others exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Finally, Maria smiled, faint located. Lieutenant Ryan Holt and his team knew they had to act quickly. The Emperor's Council was divided, and time was running out before a decision would be made about Earth's fate. If they wanted to sway the Empire's leaders away from war, they needed more than just observations. They needed undeniable evidence of humanity's strength. Evidence that couldn't be ignored. Ryan gathered his team in the briefing room aboard the reconnaissance vessel. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing maps of Earth's continents and key locations they had identified during their earlier mission. "We've seen how humans behave in everyday situations," Ryan began, pacing slowly as he spoke. "But we need to show the Council something bigger, something that proves Kael'ron's warnings are real." Dr. Samantha Wells adjusted her glasses, nodding thoughtfully. "If we focus on moments where humanity faced great challenges, wars, disasters, crises, we can highlight their ability to adapt and overcome. Those are the kinds of stories that stick." Ensign Maria Lopez pointed to a section of the map, showing a region marked by conflict. "What about this area? There's been ongoing tension here for decades, but despite everything, people keep rebuilding. They don't give up, even when it seems hopeless." Corporal Ethan Blake chimed in, scrolling through archived news reports. "And look at this. One of their nations recently recovered from a massive natural disaster. Entire cities were destroyed, yet within months they started reconstructing. They used local resources, worked together, and even shared knowledge with neighboring regions." Sergeant Daniel Quinn, who rarely spoke unless necessary, finally added his thoughts. "It's not just about surviving, it's about improving. Every time they face a problem, they find ways to make things better. That's what makes them dangerous to anyone who tries to hold them back." Ryan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Exactly. So here's the plan. We'll gather footage and data from places where humanity has shown its resilience. Disasters they've survived, conflicts they've resolved, innovations born out of necessity. We'll compile it all into a presentation that leaves no room for doubt." The team agreed, and preparations began immediately. Using cloaking technology to avoid detection, they visited sites across Earth, capturing scenes that told the story of human perseverance. In one location, they documented volunteers working tirelessly to rebuild homes after a devastating earthquake. In another, they recorded farmers using advanced irrigation techniques to combat drought. Everywhere they went, they found examples of unity, creativity, and sheer willpower. But it wasn't just physical achievements that stood out. It was the spirit behind them. At a refugee camp, they witnessed strangers sharing food and shelter, treating each other like family. In a school damaged by Jianhuo war, teachers continued holding classes outdoors, determined to give children an education. Each moment reinforced what Ryan had begun to suspect. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or brute force, it was hope. Back aboard the flagship, tensions among the council members reached a boiling point. Commander Laura Drake grew increasingly frustrated with the delays, convinced that Earth posed no real threat. "Enough of this nonsense," she snapped during a heated meeting. "Every day we waste debating is another day those primitives grow stronger. We should strike now while we still have the advantage." Ambassador Nathan Cole countered her argument calmly. "Rushing into war without fully understanding our opponent is reckless. Lieutenant Holt's team has uncovered valuable insights that could save us from making a grave mistake," Drake sneered. Insights? You mean pretty pictures of humans playing nice? Spare me. The only thing that matters is power, and we have it. They don't. Emperor Marcus Vane listened silently, his expression unreadable. When the arguing grew too loud, he raised a hand, silencing the room. Enough, he commanded. Commander, Drake, your confidence in our military might is noted. Ambassador Cole, I trust you're nearing completion of your report? Yes, Your Majesty, Cole replied. With permission, I'd like to present the findings tomorrow. I believe they will shed new light on the situation. Vane nodded. Very well. Until then, let us refrain from further debate. Dismissed. As the council dispersed, Cole approached Ryan and his team, who had been waiting anxiously outside the chamber. This is it, he said. Tomorrow we present everything we've gathered. If we fail to convince the Emperor, there may be no turning back. Ryan clenched his fists, resolve hardening in his chest. Then we won't fail. The next morning, the grand chamber buzzed with anticipation. Members of the council filed in, taking their seats around the circular table. Emperor Vane entered last, his presence commanding immediate silence. At the center of the room stood Ryan, Samantha, Maria, and Ethan, ready to deliver their presentation. Ryan stepped forward, activating the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly to reveal its beauty and complexity. Your Majesty, esteemed council members, he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. What you're about to see is proof of humanity's true nature, not as primitive beings, but as survivors, as innovators, as fighters. The first set of images showed natural disasters, hurricanes tearing through coastlines, wildfires consuming forests, floods submerging entire towns. But alongside the destruction were scenes of recovery, communities coming together to rebuild, engineers designing solutions to prevent future catastrophes, farmers adapting to changing climates. Each example highlighted humanity's refusal to surrender to despair. Next came footage of conflicts both past and present, wars that had ravaged nations yet also inspired movements for peace. Treaties signed, borders redrawn, alliances formed. Even in the darkest moments, humanity found ways to heal and move forward. Finally, the display shifted to innovations born from adversity. Solar panels powering remote villages, drones delivering medical supplies to isolated areas, artificial limbs giving mobility to those who had lost it. These advancements weren't created in pristine labs under ideal conditions. They emerged from struggle, driven by necessity and ingenuity. When the presentation ended, the room fell silent. No one moved, no one spoke. The weight of what they had witnessed hung heavy in the air. Even Commander Drake seemed momentarily shaken, though she quickly masked it with skepticism. Emperor Vane leaned forward, studying the hologram intently. After a long pause, he addressed Ryan. Lieutenant, you've given us much to consider. But tell me this. Why should we spare a species capable of such destruction? Why risk allowing them to grow stronger? Ryan met the Emperor's gaze, unwavering. Because they also create, Your Majesty. Because they learn from their mistakes. Because they dream of a better future. Not just for themselves, but for everyone. If we destroy them, we lose the chance to understand what it means to truly endure. For a moment, it seemed as though the Emperor might dismiss the argument. Then, unexpectedly, Admiral Gregory Hayes spoke up. A seasoned veteran known for his pragmatism, Hayes had remained quiet throughout most of the discussions. Now he rose from his seat, addressing the council. Perhaps, he said slowly, it is time we reconsider our approach. Humanity may lack the firepower to match us now, but their potential is undeniable. If we crush them, we gain nothing but ashes. If we guide them, perhaps we gain allies. His words sent ripples through the room. Some nodded in agreement, others scowled in disapproval. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was spreading. Commander Drake slammed her fist on the table, breaking the spell. This is madness. Allies, with primitives. We're the Galactic Empire. We don't beg for friends. We take what we want, Nathan Cole interjected calmly. Taking comes at a cost, Commander. One we may not be prepared to pay. Diplomacy offers a path forward without bloodshed. Isn't that worth exploring? Vane held up a hand, ending the argument before it escalated further. He turned to Ryan and his team. You've done well. Leave us now. The council will deliberate. As Ryan and the others exited the chamber, they exchanged glances, unsure whether their efforts had been enough. But deep down, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, cracks had appeared in the Empire's unshakable confidence. And sometimes, all it took was a crack to bring down a wall. Later that evening, Kaileron stood alone on the observation deck, gazing at Earth through the viewport. He sensed someone approaching and turned to see Ambassador Cole. Well? Kaileron asked, his tone neutral. Cole sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's too soon to say. The Emperor hasn't decided yet, but I think we've made progress. Kaileron nodded, his glowing eyes reflecting the distant blue planet. Progress is fragile, Ambassador. Guard it carefully. The road ahead will not be easy, but it is the only one worth taking. Cole looked at Earth, its glow soft and inviting against the darkness of space. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where two vastly different civilizations could coexist, not as enemies, but as partners. It was a daunting thought, but also a hopeful one. As the stars twinkled beyond the viewport, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which path the Empire would choose. The days following the presentation were tense aboard the flagship. Emperor Marcus Vane and his council spent hours locked in debate, weighing the risks and rewards of their next move. The arguments grew heated, with voices rising and tempers flaring. On one side stood Commander Laura Drake, her stance unyielding as ever. She demanded immediate action, insisting that humanity's potential was irrelevant compared to the Empire's overwhelming power. We've seen enough, she declared during one particularly fiery session. Every moment we delay gives them time to prepare. Strike now or regret it later. Opposing her was Admiral Gregory Hayes, whose measured tone carried an authority that few could ignore. Commander Drake, he said firmly, you speak of strength, but true strength lies in knowing when not to use it. Humanity may be young, but they are resourceful. If we attack recklessly, we risk losing more than just soldiers. We risk losing credibility. And what happens when other civilizations hear of our failure? Will they see us as conquerors or fools? Drake glared at him, her jaw tightening. You're letting fear dictate your decisions. Fear of a species that doesn't even know we exist yet. Ambassador Nathan Cole stepped in, attempting to mediate. This isn't about fear, Commander, it's about strategy. Lieutenant Holt's team has shown us undeniable evidence of humanity's resilience. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and unite makes them unpredictable opponents. Is it worth risking everything for a planet that might cost us far more than it's worth? The Emperor listened silently, his expression unreadable. He had always prided himself on making calculated decisions, but this situation tested even his resolve. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. Enough, he commanded, raising a hand to silence the bickering council members. Both sides have made valid points, but before we decide, I want to hear from someone who hasn't spoken much during these discussions. General Kaileron. All eyes turned to the alien general, who stood quietly near the edge of the chamber. His glowing eyes scanned the room, taking in the weight of the moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but firm. Your Majesty, I came here to warn you, not because I sought to meddle in your affairs, but because I wished to prevent another tragedy. My people learned the hard way that underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake. They are not perfect, nor are they infallible, but they possess something rare, the will to endure, to survive, to rise no matter how many times they fall. He paused, letting his words sink in. If you choose war, you must accept the consequences. There will be no swift victory, no clean resolution. Humanity will fight back with everything they have. and they will drag you into a conflict you cannot win without paying a heavy price. Or, he hesitated, then continued, or you can choose peace. Extend a hand instead of a sword. Show them that you value cooperation over conquest. In doing so, you may gain something far greater than resources or territory. You may gain allies. The room fell silent as Kael'ron finished speaking. Even Drake, who had been so quick to dismiss his warnings before, seemed momentarily shaken. For the first time, doubt crept into her steely demeanor. Emperor Vane leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. After several long moments, he addressed the council. Here is my decision. We will send envoys to Earth, not as invaders, but as explorers seeking knowledge. Our presence will remain hidden until we determine how best to approach them. If diplomacy proves possible, we will pursue it. If not, he let the sentence hang unfinished, leaving the implication clear. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some nodded in approval. Others exchanged wary glances. Drake looked furious, her fists clenched at her sides, but she held her tongue. Hayes, however, allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The tide, it seemed, was beginning to turn. Meanwhile, aboard the reconnaissance vessel, Ryan Holt and his team prepared for their next mission. Though relieved that the Emperor had chosen diplomacy over war, for now, they knew the hardest part lay ahead. Establishing contact with humanity would require precision and care. One wrong move could shatter any chance of peaceful relations. We need to find someone who can act as a bridge, Samantha suggested as they gathered around a table covered in maps and data. Someone open-minded, curious about the unknown. Someone willing to listen. Maria nodded enthusiastically. What about Emily Carter? She's already shown leadership qualities and a willingness to embrace change. Plus, she's well respected in her community. Ryan considered the idea. It's risky. If we reveal ourselves too soon, we could scare her, or worse, draw attention from others. But if we play it right, she might be exactly what we need. Ethan chimed in, adjusting the settings on a holographic display. I've been analyzing communication patterns in her area. There's a festival happening soon, a public event where people gather to celebrate innovation and progress. It could be the perfect opportunity to make contact. Sergeant Daniel Quinn, who rarely offered input unless necessary, spoke up. Just remember, subtlety is key. No flashy displays, no grand gestures. Let them come to us. Agreeing on a plan, the team set to work preparing for the festival. Using advanced cloaking technology, they positioned themselves near the outskirts of the gathering, observing from a safe distance. The scene was vibrant, filled with laughter, music, and colorful decorations. Stalls lined the streets, showcasing inventions ranging from simple gadgets to complex machines. Children ran between the crowds, their faces painted with bright designs, while adults engaged in lively conversations about science, art, and the future. As the day wore on, Ryan spotted Emily Carter standing near a podium, addressing a group of attendees. Her speech echoed themes of unity and collaboration, urging people to look beyond differences and work together toward common goals. Watching her, Ryan couldn't help but feel a spark of admiration. Here was someone who truly understood the essence of humanity, the same spirit Kael'ron had described. When the crowd dispersed, Ryan approached her cautiously, his appearance masked by a holographic disguise. "Excuse me," he said softly, catching her attention. "I couldn't help but notice your speech. You seem passionate about bringing people together." Emily smiled warmly, though there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Thank you. I believe we're stronger when we collaborate. Why do you ask?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Because I think you might be able to help us with something important." Her brow furrowed slightly. "Help you? Who are you?" Before Ryan could respond, Ethan signaled subtly from behind a nearby stall. A security drone was approaching, its sensors scanning the area. Knowing they couldn't risk exposure, Ryan handed Emily a small device disguised as a pen. "Take this," he urged. "If you want answers, press the button tonight, alone." Without waiting for a reply, he melted back into the crowd, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. Emily stared at the object in her hand, confusion mingling with intrigue. What had she just stumbled into? That night, alone in her apartment, Emily examined the pen-like device under the glow of a desk lamp. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as some kind of prank, but another part, the part that thrived on curiosity, couldn't resist pressing the button. As she did, a hologram flickered to life, projecting an image of Ryan Holt. "Hello, Emily," he began, his tone calm and reassuring. "My name is Ryan, and I represent friends who wish to learn more about your world. We mean you no harm, but we need your help to ensure that remains true. Please trust us and we'll explain everything." The message ended abruptly, leaving Emily stunned. For a long moment, she sat frozen, staring at the empty space where the hologram had been. Then, slowly, determination replaced shock. Whatever this was, she decided, she owed it to herself, and to humanity, to find out more. Back aboard the flagship, preparations continued for the envoy mission. Ambassador Cole worked tirelessly to draft proposals and protocols, ensuring every detail was accounted for. Admiral Hayes coordinated with the fleet, emphasizing caution above all else. Even Commander Drake, though still skeptical, grudgingly followed orders, recognizing the Emperor's decision as final. As the envoys prepared to depart, Kale Ron visited Cole one last time. "You've done well," he said simply. "But remember, the path to peace is fraught with challenges. Be patient, be wise." Cole nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, General, for everything." With that, the envoys departed, their ships cloaked and silent as they descended toward Earth. The galaxy watched and waited, holding its breath as two vastly different civilizations stood on the brink of either harmony or catastrophe. Only time would tell which path they would ultimately choose. The envoys from the Galactic Empire landed in a secluded forest on Earth, their ships hidden beneath dense foliage and advanced cloaking technology. Lieutenant Ryan Holt led the small group, accompanied by Dr. Samantha Wells, Ensign Maria Lopez, and Ambassador Nathan Cole. Each of them carried a mix of hope and tension as they prepared for what might be humanity's first official encounter with an alien civilization. Their initial plan was simple: establish trust through subtle gestures before revealing themselves fully. Emily Carter had agreed to meet them after receiving Ryan's message, though she remained cautious. Her curiosity outweighed her fear, and she arrived at the designated location, a quiet clearing surrounded by towering trees, armed only with questions. When Emily stepped into the clearing, she froze, her eyes widening at the sight of four figures standing before her. Their appearances were human-like, but there was something unmistakably different about them. The faint shimmer of light around their forms, the way they moved with an almost unnatural grace. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "Emily," he said gently, "thank you for coming." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "Who or what are you?" Ryan exchanged a glance with his team before answering. "We're visitors from another world. We mean you no harm. In fact, we're here because we believe your species has great potential." Emily frowned, her mind racing to process his words. "Potential? What does that mean? And why come to me?" Maria stepped forward, her tone warm and reassuring. "Because you understand the importance of unity and progress. You inspire others to work together to solve problems instead of creating them. That's something rare, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy." Emily shook her head slightly, still struggling to grasp the enormity of the situation. "This is insane. Aliens, really? How do I know this isn't some kind of trick?" Nathan Cole intervened, his diplomatic training kicking in. "We understand how unbelievable this must seem, but we need your help. If we're going to build a relationship between our peoples, it has to start with trust. Will you hear us out?" After a long pause, Emily nodded slowly. "Okay, but if this turns out to be some elaborate prank, I'm calling the police." The team exchanged relieved smiles. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start. Over the next few days, Emily became their guide, helping them navigate the complexities of human society. She introduced them to trusted friends and colleagues, scientists, engineers, and community leaders who could contribute to discussions about cooperation and mutual understanding. Through her, the envoys began to piece together a clearer picture of humanity's strengths and weaknesses. One evening, as the group gathered in a secluded cabin to review their progress, Emily turned to Ryan with a thoughtful expression. "You keep saying you want to help us. Help us do what exactly?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Help you grow. Your species is young, but you've already achieved so much. Imagine what you could accomplish with access to knowledge and resources beyond your current reach." Samantha added, "But it's not just about giving you things. It's about learning from each other. You have qualities we lack, qualities like resilience, creativity, and compassion. Those are traits worth sharing." Emily looked around the room, studying each face. Despite their differences, she saw sincerity in their eyes. Slowly, she began to believe that their intentions were genuine. Meanwhile, news of strange occurrences began spreading globally. Unexplained lights in the sky, mysterious disappearances of key figures like Emily, and whispers of contact with extraterrestrial beings sparked both excitement and fear. Governments scrambled to investigate, while conspiracy theories flooded social media platforms. Back aboard the flagship, Emperor Marcus Vane monitored developments closely. Reports of unrest on Earth troubled him, but he refused to intervene prematurely. "Let the envoys handle it," he told his council. "If we act too soon, we risk undoing everything they've worked for." Commander Laura Drake seethed quietly, her frustration boiling over during private meetings. "This is madness," she muttered to Admiral Hayes. "Every day we delay, the situation becomes more unstable. Sooner or later, someone will expose us. And then what?" Hayes met her gaze calmly. "Then we adapt, just as humanity would." As weeks passed, the envoy's efforts began bearing fruit. Emily arranged a secret meeting between the team and President Julia Meyer, the leader of one of Earth's most influential nations. The encounter took place in a secure underground facility, far from prying eyes. President Meyer listened intently as Nathan Cole explained the Empire's proposal. "We seek not domination but partnership," he said. "Together we can achieve feats neither of us could accomplish alone." Meyer leaned back in her chair, her expression guarded yet intrigued. "And what do you expect in return? Resources? Loyalty?" "No," Ryan replied firmly. "Only mutual respect and cooperation. We ask nothing more." After hours of discussion, Meyer agreed to consider the proposal, promising to bring it to the United Nations for further deliberation. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Months later, representatives from the Galactic Empire stood alongside Earth's leaders at a historic summit. Though tensions lingered, the groundwork for peace had been laid. Humanity, once viewed as primitive and insignificant, was now seen as a promising ally. Kael'ron watched the proceedings from afar, his glowing eyes reflecting pride and relief. He approached Ambassador Cole privately as the event drew to a close. "You've done well," he said simply. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Trust takes time to build, and even longer to repair if broken." Cole nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, General. Without your warning, none of this would have been possible." As the summit concluded, Ryan found himself standing beside Emily, gazing up at the stars. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked softly. He smiled, his voice filled with quiet confidence. "I think we gave both our species a chance, and sometimes that's all anyone can ask for." In the vastness of space, the galaxy held its breath, watching as two civilizations embarked on a fragile yet hopeful journey toward coexistence. The road ahead would be uncertain, but for the first time, it was a path walked together.